I want to start off by telling you a story. Many, many moons ago, way, way before Christopher Columbus ever put his flag on the New Americas. This is before that time. When the animals and the people can talk. Not like Trevor's story earlier. Where's Trevor? I know he was talking about sitting up on a hill. This is at a time. This is at a time when they could communicate, because there was that time here, one time, long time ago. All the dogs in the nation decided to have a grand meeting. They wanted to have this meeting. And so dogs, they ran everywhere to go get all the dogs to tell them we're meeting at this time, at this place, in this teepee. And this Cree male, he found out about this meeting, and he's like, I'll come to the meeting, I'll help out. And the dog said, no, this is for dogs only. And this Cree male was like, I just want to help. No, this is for dogs only. So all the dogs, the meeting, they all got to their place. And they all got to the teepee, and every dog unhooked their tail, put it on the teepee canvas, and went inside. This Cree male, I'm going to play a joke on these dogs, he said. So next time they have a meeting, they're going to invite me. So when all the dogs started their meeting, they were all in the teepee, all their tails were on the outside. He snuck up behind the teepee, and he started a fire. And when the fire got big enough, he ran up to the teepee, and he said, fire! And all the dogs panicked inside this teepee, and they didn't know what to do, and there was only one door. So they were all trying to get out the door, and they couldn't find their own tail. So they grabbed any tail they could, hooked it on their tail, and took off. That is why, to this day, when two dogs meet each other, they sniff each other's tail because they're still looking for their original tail. Thanks for the introduction. I grew up an hour and 20 minutes east of Regina. I lived on my nation till I was 21 years old. And the journey I'm about to tell you about, I'm going to talk about my experiences and the foundations that I had to lean on to get the courage to stand on the stage and talk to you today. I was born in 1982, and my mom found out that I was allergic to cow's milk. And this is at a time when not too many kids were allergic to cow's milk, so the doctor didn't know what to do. And my mom was crying in the Broadview Hospital. I don't know what to do. And this elderly lady, a kokum from my language, the Cree language, said, try goat's milk. She called my dad, you go buy a goat right now. And he did. And I lived on goat's milk till I was 6 years old. The reason I started off with that one is this story really hurt me when I got my first girlfriend. Because my dad said, I want to tell you about my son. He drank goat's milk, and we just held him under the goat like this. And then my brother, we had to cut your boyfriend off goat's milk because he started to laugh like this. Bah. This is all going to lead to somewhere. I grew up, I'm the youngest of 9 siblings. 9 siblings. I'm the only child from my mom and dad. At my house growing up, you used to hear this. Honey, your kid and my kid are beating up our kid. My mom and dad are survivors of residential school. I am the first generation in my bloodline for 5 generations not to ever step foot in a residential school. And I'm not here to ask for any kind of, it's just a part of my journey. I'll get to my point. I never grew up with an internal anger that a lot of my bloodline has. And not everybody has it, but some have it. But I felt it growing up, but I didn't have it. I can see it. I can see things in my house. I'm like, okay. And I just seen it differently. When I got older, on my nation, there's a golf course. And I wanted fries and gravy one day, so I went to the golf course to go pick golf balls, to sell them for $0.25 a ball so I can buy some fries and gravy. And while I was selling these golf balls, this gentleman, his name was Wallace Tapetat. He was from a similar nation right next to mine called Kakawishtahow First Nation. He said, "Come on, boy, let's go golfing." And as a child, when somebody wants you to do something, you're like, yeah. I had no golf clubs, and he was just giving me golf clubs out of his golf bag, and we started golfing. "Let's meet here tomorrow again." And I got excited, yeah. So I got home, my mom and dad, we were very poor. They found me this lost and found set of golf clubs. And so I started golfing. And I topped the ball and whatnot. And one day he said, "Let's play $0.25 a hole." And I was like, I think I was 10 or 11. And I had 2 quarters in my pocket. And I couldn't play after 2 holes because he took both my quarters right away. I'm like, I want to win quarters. So I started practicing at home. I'd hit it at the bins at my dad's farm and hear the bin and try it again. And before you know it, I started coming home with these pocket full of quarters. And my mom was like, "Where'd you get these quarters?" I'm like, "Well, I won them at golfing, and no, they're my quarters, And he put that drive to compete in me, and it never left. As I got older, as a teenager growing up on my First Nation, you encounter some things, substances. I seen drugs and alcohol, I tried it. I tried it again, I tried it again, I tried it again. And before you know it, it just became a part of my life. It was just there, there was nothing else to do. So I had to overcome this. And at the age of 20, I graduated, not a high average, but I graduated. And my mom and dad said, "We have to fix our son because he's better than this." And my mom and dad forced me, I didn't want to do this, to go to Lethbridge Community College. And they did my application, they wrote my letter, because they wanted me to go. I didn't want to go. I was happy and content where I was. I got there. My mom and dad drove me there. First time in my life, I was actually sitting in a room, and I looked around, and I did not see one fellow Indian like myself. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I didn't have a clue. I lasted 7 months, and I got RTD'd. I wanted to get RTD'd. I wanted to go back home. I didn't want to be there. And before I left, this teacher sat me down, and he says, "I'm looking at your marks, and you're struggling." And I'm like, yeah, I'm struggling. He's like, and this is what he told me, and I know he meant no harm, but he said, "I understand your people." And how are we? I was like, it's like, okay. And he was trying to like make me comfortable. I'm like, you know what? I just want to go home. I don't want to be here. I just have to go home. And I went home. And when I got home, I forgot to mention, when I left home, I left the substances behind. I said, I'm going to start something new. My mom and dad talked to me about it. When I got home, my friends were doing the same thing. I was like, no, I'm good. And you know what my mom and dad did? They were my foundation. I leaned on them. They took me out in an environment and allowed me to see it from the outside in. And I never went back. I never ever touched anything after I left that time. And my mom and dad did that for me. I wanted to pause there. I want to talk to you about humor, because there's something that I really enjoy, I really enjoy laughing. I love laughter. We all laugh in the same language. We speak all our different languages, Cree, English, French, Soto, but we all laugh in the same language. And I didn't understand how big of laughter plays in communities. Growing up, I have the name Cadmus, so I had to learn humor really quickly because it rhymes with certain words, and I used to get called, I'm not going to say them. But I always wanted to be called Jeff. I remember sitting in my room one time, crying. You can tell by now my stories, I'm a crybaby. I want to be called Jeff because nothing rhymes with Jeff. I love my name today, Cadmus. People don't even have to ask me my last name. It's just Cadmus. But anyways, humor. When I grew up, everything was about humor on my nation. We teased each other all the time. I had to learn to smile at times when I just get angry because that was just the way it was. And when I went to First Nations University of Canada, I took this English class. And this professor stood there and she said, okay, we're gonna pick one theme this whole semester. We'll do Aboriginal romance or Aboriginal humor. So I'm sitting in the back and I'm like, I already know what romance is. That's going to KFC and licking each other's fingers after you're done. I know that. My wife hates that joke. We don't do that. And anymore. And so we did Aboriginal humor. And you know what? There's a reason why I couldn't believe I'd never seen this before. There's a reason why, and I'm sorry, I'm only speaking from an Indigenous perspective because I'm an Indigenous person. There's a reason why we bust out laughing, we slap our knees, we cover our mouths. It has always been ingrained in our bloodline. And this is how it used to be. When we were nomadic people as Indigenous people, humor was a law given to us from our Creator to keep the cohesion within the tribe. If we were a tribe right now, and I did not work as hard as all of you, you would tease me and ridicule me. If I still refused to work as hard as all of you, you would make me set up my camp 100 meters away. And you'd stand here, point at me, and laugh. In the evenings, I'd be over here trying to start my fire all by myself. I'd hear the wolf howling in the back. I'd get scared. I would promise to work as hard as you, and you would let me back into the tribe. That's where humor comes from. After residential school, two kind of humors came back to the Indigenous people. There's a helium humor. That's the licking each other's fingers after KFC. Nobody gets hurt in that joke. It's just funny. And then there's the weighted humor. That's the lateral violence. That's the teasing each other because of the skin of your color, because my shoes are not as nice as your shoes, because of the way I was brought up is different than the way you were brought up. So we pull each other down. If we can get that lateral violence and get that weighted humor out of there and focus on that helium humor, we would be unstoppable as nations here today. And now take the Indigenous part out of that and take us here in the Treaty 4 territory, right where we sit, Regina, Yorkton, Swift Current. If we can focus on a helium humor and learn to work together, we would be unstoppable, because when one of us suffers, no matter what nationality you are, our bar cannot rise. We have to learn to bring our bar up. So I wanted to explain humor there because I love to laugh. I can laugh all day. I love productivity, and I will work hard, but when I have a chance to tease you, I am going to tease you. And I hope you tease me right back, because I'm going to laugh just as hard. So my journey through life has taken me to many, many areas. When I got to First Nations University of Canada, I was 27 years old. I know I look young right now. I always say it's that reserve water I grew up showering in that makes me look so young. I have another story for you. So when I got my second girlfriend, the first one dumped me because she found out I grew up on goat's milk. When I got my second girlfriend, one day she told me, "You smell like a penny." And I took so much offense to it. How come I couldn't smell like a loonie or a toonie or a quarter? Had to be a penny, of all things. And so she dumped me. And and like a month later, my mom gets out of the shower, and she's in her robe, and she's like, "This rust water on the reserve makes my toes so red. That's why I smell like a penny." And I grew up at a time where we didn't have texting, so I picked up the phone and I started calling my ex-girlfriend. I'm not that old, I'm kidding. And so I told her, "I just want to tell you why I smell like a penny." And I told her, "Will you go back out with me? Will you at least talk to me in the hallway? Okay, bye." So life goes on, and I enter university. I walk into the university for a second time at the age of 27. I knew I was ready because I worked my way up from, I was just like a laborer. And through doing two things, I made my way to assistant manager. By simply showing up on time and showing my pearly yellows to every customer that walked into that store, I made my way to assistant manager. But I hit my glass ceiling in life. I was like, how come I can't be the president? How come I can't be like a decision maker in this company? They're like, all you have is a grade 12. And a very low average grade 12 at that. Well, I want to go back to school because I don't want to be just an assistant manager. And so I walked into the First Nations University of Canada because A, my mom graduated from there. I am the second generation. And B, I'm First Nations and I didn't have a clue what that really meant. I knew I was the first. I had a status card that says I'm First Nations. So that's the reason I chose this institution, is because I want to find out who I am. And I want to talk to you a bit about identity. You know, I'm an Indigenous person, and because I found out the core things of spirituality, of education, of who I am, you know, I could walk up to people now, and I'm very proud of who I am. And that really reflects on my work ethics, my work attitude. Whereas before, I was very shy. You know, I'd work hard, but the moment I'd bring up, like, I'd hear a gossip about, oh, something about Indians this, I'm like, ooh, I better stay away from there. They might ask me a question. You know, it was like I was hiding from working hard. And where I'm trying to go with this is we have to understand who we are in our hearts. Because if you're walking around not knowing who you are in your heart, how can you have a fresh mind ready to grow productivity, ready to grow together as one whole nation? So, and this takes me back to a time when my dad taught me a valuable lesson about walking with my chin up in the air. And this is just from my perspective. Please don't paint this as a paintbrush across the whole nation of all First Nations. This is just my journey, my story. My dad used to lock the door at my house on my reserve, put the key up on a nail, and I'd be like standing there, 10 years old. Dad, why? You can see the key. He's like, don't worry, my son. We don't walk with our head up around here. I'm like, but I can see it. It's right there. Yes, I'm walking with my head up. And now I'm just going to fast forward to university. I sit with Mr. Tony Cody at First Nations University. He's our kiosk elders helper. He says, watch your first-year students walk by my desk. And they walk by, head down, really quickly, hi, and keep walking. Very shy, very, very closed. And he says, watch your fourth-year students walk by here. They're walking by, shoulders back, they're looking at the nice glass teepee, they'll stop and talk to Tony. That's what education does. It just peels everything away to allow you to walk with who you want to be. I just want to finish off by telling two quick stories. From where I was as an individual to where I came, I met many people in life, but two quick stories. I met the Governor General of Canada 2 years ago. He came to the university and he sat with 10 of us. And he asked all 10 students, what do you want to do with your education? And every student wanted to help their people, help my community, help my city. And then he asked us, what do you want to do? What's your future job? I want to get into health. I want to be a business. I want to be an entrepreneur. He got to me, and this is what I told him. I looked him right in the eye, and I said, I want to be the Governor General of Canada. My second person I met, I had the opportunity, privilege of meeting the Prince Charles and his wife, Camilla. I had 22 minutes to tour them of First Nations University. And during our tour, he was very, very interested, and he knew his knowledge because as a First Nations, we signed a treaty with the Crown, his family. And he was very knowledgeable, and I just appreciated him. But I told him this joke because everybody's so serious with him. I'm like, I'm going to make the future King of England laugh. Studied, and I found this joke, and I just exercised it perfectly. I told him, Your Royal Highness, on behalf of all of my people, I just want to tell you, we like what you've done with the place. And he looked at me and we laughed hard. A 30-second story before I let you go. I went to 7-Eleven, Dudney Street, 7-Eleven. I love going there. I don't live around there, but that's my 7-Eleven because that's where I see a lot of Indigenous people. There was this guy sitting outside with a cup. And I got out of my vehicle and I waited for him to call me over and he didn't. And I went inside and I got my Diet Coke. As soon as I opened the door, I can hear him calling me over. And I started slowly walking over to him, smiling at him. And he gave me every excuse why he needed change. And I just smiled at him and I grabbed his hand and I put $3 in it. I didn't say a word to him and nothing but a smile on my face. And he looked at me and he said, "I'm a good person." And I says, "I know you're a good person. I love you, now make yourself better." And that's how we must treat each other. Thank you very much.